So, how to protect the handloom is our today's topic. And I think it is every day's concern for all of us connected to handloom in some way or the other. There is not even a day which goes without we thinking about it. So, I'm afraid at the rate that, handloom weavers and the way the whole handloom industry is looking at power loom's threat. I think if we don't act now, we will not be able to say that weavers are our cultural identity. Maybe we will be able to say weavers were our cultural identity. Before you wear your ikat fabric, you realize how much effort is. Look at the marking. Design first has to be converted into the graph, and then the marking on the yarn, and then the women collectives that I have trained under the project. Now they do everything themselves, even spreading the warp winding, which is man's job actually. So, how to protect the handloom is our today's topic. And I think it is every day's concern for all of us connected to handloom in some way or the other. There is not even a day which goes without we thinking about it, someone calling up and say, hey, I went to so-and-so place and there are no genuine handlooms available. We have walked many miles on this path and we saw that handloom clothing was becoming a growing trend. Then, when I was a young designer, graduated master's degree from fine arts, and later the love for weaves and textures made me do NID. And I married to Rao from Hyderabad, from a Telugu person. I'm from Gujarat, and I have so much enthusiasm in me. I had working with weavers, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. That time it was a united state, like a real canvas of ready canvas for me to work. And that is the beginning of the handloom trend re-emerging. Post-independence, there was a slowing down because, power loom and, industries had come in, mill-made yarn had come in. There was a slowing down, but then in my time, particularly when NID was established and churning out designers who are focusing more on handloom, all those designers, my contemporaries, I'm talking about say 35 years ago, 40 years ago, had handloom as a passion. And even the trend was quite supportive. There was a resurgence, a kind of people started within India, people started considering handloom as a fashion. So we have spent our entire youth working with and around handloom weavers of our country. We saw the light of resurgence, particularly during 1980s and 90s. And sadly, past 2.5 decades, the invasion of power loom has swept in so fast. We saw it coming and we every day talked about it. But here we are helplessly staring at it and thinking, what can we do? As a design professional, I have, founded a platform called Creative Bee. It's a social and sustainable MSME business. We have our entire production value chain under our umbrella, which took over 10 years to create. All of you who are into the production and supply chain here, or who listen to my talk will know how difficult it is to connect one value chain to another, like yarn, dyeing, weavings, designs, then making final finished garments. So this was a phase when we just brick by brick made a structure at Creative such a way that we as a designer can make the best hand woven product. So best quality in hand weave and aesthetic natural dye, authentic natural dyes, and creating contemporary designs, and yet othering to the traditional weaves. This is what Creative Bee is known today, and for retail, export, and B2B. You can see the contemporary look of Indian handloom, and particularly Telangana. Our focus, our base is Telangana and Andhra, and we have spent over 2.5 decades empowering smaller weaver groups by training them into achieving quality. We always paid higher wages. The sustainable fashion, what we talk about today, was pioneered say 2.5 decades ago by Creative Bee, thinking that unless you nourish a plant, sweet fruits can't be harvested. This was the concept, and it has worked. Weavers who have started work with us 2.5 decades ago, they are still with us, and they have grown. Their children have gone to colleges and schools and come back to help their families in most cases. Also, Keshav Rao, my husband, he's an artist. Both of us, our basic training is in art. He is very passionate about crafts as well, not only textiles and handloom, but he's very more passionate about handicraft. He thinks that as much agriculture is produced in India, that much handmade crafts are produced. Every village has something or the other craft happening. Farmers have, achieved sort of a collectivized channel of marketing their produce, but in handicraft, we still are at a very primary stage. 20 years ago, we felt that while traveling to Thailand and on UN projects, we saw that Southeast Asian countries have equipments where raw material has been can be prepared equally. See, our creative artisan hands need not sit and chop the wood or melt the metal or slit the fiber. There has to be a way to prepare all the raw material in a semi-mechanized machine with machine. That was one story. But doing craft is always by hand. In handloom, we have come to a stage when we want to do everything by machine. Anyway, we talk about that later. So this Creative Bee Foundation, that is a non-profit side of Creative Bee, which has purely remained a facility where we have equipments, NGOs can send their groups for training, government can give send groups, international groups can come, and it is facilitated by Creative Bee, which is a for-profit arm from the knowledge department as a skill training program. And so we have Creative Bee, one as a business, which is in fashion, export, retail. Creative Bee Foundation has one big building at Creative Bee Dye Farm. Creative Bee Dye Farm is also same place as foundation, which is at Ghatkesar. And that has been also made by my husband, Keshav Rao. He has done a lot of R&D, almost about a decades of R&D to come to a quality natural dye production, which can be machine washable and which can be meeting the international trends, and bigger orders can be done. So if you see in the picture here, we have all the ingredients in raw form at farm. And what we grow at farm is only for our R&D because now the work has grown so much that we need to source these ingredients in tons from Tri-Fed or from, Girijan cooperatives and wherever this is collected. And it has been hand pulverized. So finishing also is done by hand. 100% hand finish is what Creative Bee gives to its international buyers. So we spoke about Creative Bee Foundation, the Creative Bee, the dye farm, and Creative, the main business arm. But yet another vertical of our 3 decades of professional work is consultation and training projects, which we do in collaboration with the governments, NGOs, UN, and many private companies and startup brands. I love creating a brand for, say, IT professionals or anyone who is passionate about handloom and fashion. So in 6 months' time at Creative Bee, we would develop, as per their brief, the entire package of what they want, like man's shirt. There is a new brand which we have developed called Susego, SUSEGO Life, Susego Life. They launched 8 months ago. They are thriving now. It's all their passion for handloom and our passion and designabilities have created the brand. Like every 6 months, we will have 2 or 3 such startup brands that we create. We work with bigger companies who need design support, and as a consultant for larger UN project, we go as a senior consultants. We also take up projects on Creative Bee where long-term training and sending looms and all that is required. So these projects are taking me to different states. My own work, which is at Creative Bee, as I explained, is all under one roof. I mean, nearly under one roof and 2 states. But the consulting projects take me from the beginning. From day one, I have been traveling across the country through my consulting projects. And while I'm setting up a new showroom, like there is those who are in Hyderabad, they know that Kalanjali showroom was made by me for Inadu Group. And as a young designer, very enthusiastically, I have traveled the whole country and lined up the connections and supply source to Kalanjali. Also Fab India in earlier years, I used to be, connected. But now more and more specialized projects come our way. And my recent visits have been an eye-opener for me in terms of how fast the damage of handloom sector is happening and how fast we need to act on what has still remained nascent, still live. So I'm afraid at the rate that handloom weavers and the way the whole handloom industry is looking at power looms threat. I think if we don't act now, we will not be able to say that weavers are our cultural identity. Maybe we will be able to say weavers were our cultural identity. That is the time now, knocking at our door. And interestingly, last month, I was invited by the Ministry of Textiles to be the member of final selection committee for National Handloom Award and Sant Kabir Awards 2023. I had one full day looking at priceless entries which have come from across the country. I felt really happy to see that such high level of skill, heritage still surviving. I mean, each entry was worth $1 million. That is what, if you ask me. And the way a display was organized, the way everything was put together, I mean, I felt really proud that our country is still holding on to such a large chunk of traditional heritage which has been passed on from centuries. And my happiness did not even last for a day. As I went to Bhagalpur from Delhi, I had already traveled from Hyderabad to Delhi and I had assignment in Bhagalpur. I realized that the past 2 decades, the handloom production has been really taken over by powerloom at Puri. There is so much that the most handloom clusters which used to thrive, say, about 20 years ago. While I'm setting up Kalanjali, I have traveled across the country, as I said, and the kind of Bhagalpur handloom that we knew is almost taking a back seat now. A lot of power loom, rapier looms, and equipments to support those looms. So before we go to Bhagalpur and production, I think I would like to first start with our own state, Telangana. I really wish someone had asked the questions to decision makers that we are asking ourselves today when ikat, which is woven on power loom, was accepted in handloom category with an argument that it is hand-tied and hand-dyed. The question which we are raising now, why handcrafted weave matter in automated world? And ikat is such a relevant topic for this question. Why ikat shouldn't have been going on to power loom? The angle from which people have accepted handloom to go on to ikat to go on to power loom was absolutely baseless. Their argument saying that ikat is half hand process, like tying, dyeing, everything, a pre-loom process is done by hand. But believe me, the way power loom industry has cut down the prices for these ancillary workers, your heart will sink if you go to the villages. I have kept last 5 years of my time, my 80% time I have given to these villages. As Mrs. Wani mentioned, that I was working on a large UN project. And I have been seeing so many weavers and senior citizens, senior women who were earlier engaged in ancillary activity of, tying, dyeing, and joining the warp. They are paid very less now. The power loom trader or a power loom manufacturer is really bargaining the price to bottom low. And if you come around here in a wholesale market, I think Chowtuppal, if you go, there is a power loom fabric available at 150 rupees and ikat fabric at 150 rupees. If you buy a Mangalgiri fabric, if you buy 60-40 cotton, if you buy Chirala cotton, if you buy any handloom fabric today, putting yarn cost and wages together, it will not be less than 135 or 150 rupees. Our weavers, we weave over 60-40 cotton at 160, 170 rupees. You analyze the whole value chain, that who gets how much is for the yarn, how much for the wages, how much for harnessing the loom. And can you imagine that the whole value chain of ikat, tying, dyeing has been absorbed in that 150 rupees? How? So this is what my question. This is what my question to authorities who have said it's okay, supply ikat to handloom stores, handloom emporias. We will take it as a handloom product. And read pick. Those who are technically aware, They know that the life of the fabric is reed and pick, means warp and weft. And traditionally, our looms, our ikat looms are with such a dense reed. Our weavers will not be so greedy that they would change the reed to save some yarn. The reeds have been there on their looms for years together, and the same amount of compact fabric that they have been weaving. But when it comes to power loom, to save the yarn, also the selection of yarn is cheaper, the reed is so open. So if you put a power loom ikat fabric and handloom fabric together, you will see vast difference. And common people who are buying, who are not textile designers, who are not expert, who are the consumers, who are the people who wear garments, they would agree with me 100%, because the power loom is not even lasting for 6 machine wash, so keep aside 6 hand wash, it does not last. And how about the dyes? The dyes had been a biggest problem. Of course, today's talk is not technical. I don't want to make it technical because I know Vishwa attracts people from lots of disciplines. But I want to insist on dyes when we talk about ikat, because the naphthol dyes, which is banned in most developed countries. All developed countries have banned naphthol dyes, which is carcinogenic for the environment and for the user and for the person who's wearing naphthol dyed garment, is still available in India, in parts of many states, and in Telangana. Most ikat is produced with bright red and bright pink, all the colors that you see, bright green, emerald green. These are the colors which are naphthol dyes, and they are not azo-free. And the buyers insist on azo-free dye. But tell me, which village has a NHDC depot which stocks azo-free dye? Or where is the source? Okay, as a weaver community, as a collective, I want to buy azo-free dyes. What are my options? I have to order it in bulk from Hyderabad trader. Even most of those traders stock dyes without a label, which does not have any label which says this is azo-free, it is made by this dye company. Now, the dye is another factor. So much of hard work. These 2 pictures I'm showing here for people to understand that before you wear your ikat fabric, you realize how much effort is. Look at the marking. Design first has to be converted into the graph, and then the marking on the yarn, and then the women collectives that I have trained under the project now, they do everything themselves, even spreading the warp, winding, which is man's job actually. But they have to spread the warp in hot sun. They will be working in the streets of Koilgudam and the villages Siripuram, Katupal, Chautuppal, Narayan Sansthanpuram. So many villages that where women have taken up this job now. And now you see that even little mistake in setting of the design will distort your design. And buyer will not take it, designers will not take it. The human angle to acceptance have gone completely from handloom. That is another thing that we all need to know, that when you have a yarn which is traveling from one end to another end for 60 days in different circumstances, on the street, on the road, in the veranda of a weaver, in the house where children are playing, the damage is bound to happen and little mistake bound to happen, and you have to have a tolerance. The designers and business people need to find solutions to upcycling anything that is damaged. This is what Creative does. We follow zero waste policy, and we have beautiful products being made which will add to another layer of livelihood. And whoever works with Creative, either interns or design interns or junior designers, they enjoy this activity, converting the left out beautiful textiles, putting them together.